E3's kind of done. Like,
I
I think this is just it
I
now.
do not see it coming back. At
There
least not for a
was
while.
nothing, there was no COVID issues, there was no, will they, won't they COVID issues. Um, but yeah, um,
Yeah.
E3 is done for 2023.
I,
It's
I,
just not happening.
yeah, and I think it started earlier this week where Ubisoft formally announced like, oh, we're not gonna be at
Yeah.
E3 this year.
That was the big flare in the sky of like this thing is in trouble. Like because
Ubisoft
like
like
even
whoosh.
even yeah, even before that, I mean, Microsoft said they weren't attending.
Mm,
Sony hasn't attended an E3 even when it was happening. Like
mm,
I think 2019 they didn't attend it. Activision hasn't attended it for ages. Um Nintendo was a big one. When Nintendo this year said they are not doing it, I was like, oh, okay,
yeah, it's
something's
then
wrong.
then you wonder like, well, what is E3? Like, no offense to smaller indie devs, but like there were none of the the big six, whatever you want to call the Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Ubisoft, EA, all those people, like they weren't
Mm,
present. So it's like, well, then what does E3 look like? I don't know. So yeah, the Ubisoft were like, we out fam, and then other people followed in the coming days. Like I know
yeah,
Devolver Digital were like, yeah, us too, and then E3 has been formally announced as not happening, which
yeah,
makes me wonder. I mean, me and I suppose literally everyone else on the planet, will it ever come back? I mean,
yeah.
maybe
I
one
don't know.
day is like a wink wink. Here's a nostalgia vibe. Hey, we're getting together. We managed to get E3 together, but I don't see that happening for a long time, if
I still
ever.
think I still think there's so much value in a conference like E3
Mm,
for a certain type of person. Like, I think it's important to get the industry all in one place for 1 week to
yeah,
show off games, for journalists to all congregate in one place and be able to be given the access to interview and try things, for the public even to get a sense of like what is happening over the next 6 months. But from a publisher perspective, I can see why that is super not what they want anymore. Like back in the
yeah,
day, maybe sure, but the industry's grown and grown and grown.
mm,
And now, like, this idea of having to put yourself out there in a conference that is being seen by millions and then almost immediately being compared to a conference that happened an hour before.
yeah.
Do you want to put yourself in that position?
And you're paying money to
Whereas,
be there.
and you're paying money to be there. So, whereas you could host your own event, which is nowhere near any other events, and you can just be like, this is our event. And if people don't like it, like they, often don't, like
Mm,
you get a PlayStation showcase or a Nintendo Direct, and people are like, that sucked. But at least it's not their E3 conference sucked,
no,
because that's a big thing.
yeah.
Um,
But
so
even
yeah, it's
even that, I feel like I've beaten this drum a million times over the last few years now. Of you know, with E3, if you're a Sony or Microsoft, you've got the money, right? But why would you pay to be part of E3 only to, like you said, be compared to another conference, or to drown with all the other games being announced? Like Sony go like, here's Last of Us Part 3, which would be pretty big. But it's like, here's a Last of Us Part 3. Then an hour later, it's like, oh my God, Gears of War 6. I get it. This is a bad comparison, but bear with me. When you could literally have a YouTube stream, which doesn't cost you
mm,
nothing, but it costs you significantly less, to put together a really nice highlight reel or video saying like, here's what's coming out in the next 6 months. You drop that on a week when nothing else big is happening, and you get all the news to yourself, all the attention on PlayStation, whether it's good or bad. Like you're getting the PR, like it makes sense. I think
yeah.
like E3, thinking about it, like even pre-COVID, it's amazing how E3 still survived. Right? It took COVID for people to realize like, hang on,
We don't
we
actually
don't
need
actually
this.
have
Yeah.
to be there. Like we can do our own thing.
Because the publishers still had to get that news out there. Like
Yeah.
the industry didn't stop for them. So it's like, okay, well, we have to make a plan. And then when they
Mm,
made the plan, they're like, wait a minute, we can just keep doing this. Like,
mm,
why did we ever think we couldn't do this? And you've got people like Activision and Sony going like, yep. We told you,
Yeah.
2019, like you don't need them. You don't need to be fighting everyone else for attention on the same day when you can just do your own thing. And that kind of sucks because it's super nice to have you know, the gauntlet of
As
press conferences was always
yeah,
super special.
as a
Was
gamer, it
super cool to
sucks not
see
having
it.
E3.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So for publishers, super makes sense. For people like us who consume
Boo.
games, who cover games, it's crap. It was always really fun, and I have so many fond memories of like watching E3 conferences,
Mm.
and then being able to attend them.
Yeah.
You know, attending like 5 E3s. I
Mm.
never thought it would be possible. So
Yeah.
it's cool. It sucks that it's gone. I do think that, you know, you've got things like Summer Game Fest, which
I,
aren't really a conference. They're just like a banner for things that are happening during June.
I was going to say,
Um,
we got our boy Jeff Keighley coming out being like, don't worry.
man, that man has no chill when it comes to this shit. He is on the pulse of like, I'm going to make sure everyone knows
That's so
I fucking
funny.
told you so with E3, you know, back in the day when he decided to walk away from it.
Mm.
So, you know, this has been a long time coming. E3 has kind of like lost its luster for a long time. Most would say that in the years like the 2018, the 2019s, it didn't even really feel like the E3 of old.
Mm.
Some would say it hasn't felt like E3 since like 2010. So I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
bummer. I think something will replace it. We'll still get conferences in June.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Microsoft is holding a showcase in June.
Yeah.
It's not announced, but Sony is seemingly going to do the same. EA is definitely going to. Ubisoft announced the Ubisoft. So there's shit happening in June. Like we're gonna know what's happening for the rest of the year come June.
Mm.
So it's just that there won't be the, oh, here's a hands-on view, or here's gameplay, or not everyone is flying all the way to LA to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, RIP E3, will it come back? Maybe one day, but I don't know. It's like a real.
I think this is kind of a
That's
nail in the
it. Yeah.
coffin. You know, everyone
Yikes.
said that about COVID, but then the ESA did the surprising thing and actually went to ReadPop, an actual conferences company, and said, "Okay, we're going to let them deal with it." And that was like, "Oh, maybe this will come back." You know, like
Yeah.
ReadPop has done. They do EGX, they do a bunch of things like, and it seems from reports that ReadPop just started planning this thing too late. By the time it started contacting people to be like, "Do you want to be part of this?" They're like, "We needed to have confirmed what was happening, like already, like done."
Yeah.
So they just fucking dropped the ball on this thing. So whether or not they
Mm.
get the chance to try again next year, or whether or not publishers will trust them to get it done next year, I don't know.
I
I
don't know.
personally don't think so. I think this is done.
It's
I
done.
never see this show
Deal.
coming back.
No, don't
So
say
yeah.
it.
Bummer,
But yeah,
real
it is a
bummer.
bummer. But you know, it's not a bummer. The Legend
What's
of
not a
Zelda,
bummer?
Tears of the Kingdom.
Boy,
Heyo.
if there was
Hang
one
on.
thing to pick up the mood this week,
Oh my god.
this gameplay looks fucking so good.
Where did your camera go? Hang on.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
listen, you know, I can only be
I
the
just
face of the
realized.
show, not the producer of the show.
Yeah, so we've been waiting a real long time for actual
We
gameplay
have.
of Tears of the Kingdom, and here we are. We got a good 10-minute look, like 10 to 11 minutes or so.
I feel like
And
it wasn't even all encompassing. It
no.
was just like, here's 4 new abilities. Okay, bye. Like,
Yeah,
it was like,
but also
what?
it's like I was expecting like just here's what the game looks like. Oh, like Link can still glide and you can still climb
Yeah,
mountains and oh like here's a bokoblin, blah blah blah. I didn't expect him to like, oh hey, remember those like 5 cool abilities you had in the base game? Yeah, we've got like 4 new ones of that. And look at what
yeah.
they can
Forget
do.
that shit. Those things were boring.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like
check this
cool.
shit
Yes,
out.
there's like 4 brand I think it's 4 brand new things. Peace out, bye. I'm like, whoa. Like,
So it's also like, you didn't like durability in the first game. Okay, well, we didn't remove it, but we actually just changed combat entirely, and how it works.
but can
And
I tell
also,
you,
you can just combine anything. And
yeah. So we'll touch on them all, but I laughed. So I suppose let's start there. What's that ability called? I can't remember what the actual.
fused?
I think it's
fused.
fuse. So
Yeah.
so think about the last game. You had like your little bombs, your stasis,
Mm.
things like that. You could move objects. We've got new abilities in that line, and one of them is a thing called fuse, which lets you combine items into new weapons. And I imagine there will be other things that we don't know, obviously. But like
Yes.
part of the gameplay, he picks up the stick. He's like, "Oh, that'll be important later." I'm like, "Fam, did you play Breath of the Wild? That stick is useless."
And then he's like, check this shit out.
Until like 30 seconds in, it's like, "Oh, we can combine the stick with this boulder, and we have a new weapon." And
now we have a hammer.
now we have
that
a
has
hammer.
better durability, does more damage, and it's like,
I was like, "Oh, hang on. Okay, I suppose let's just cut back quickly." So that if you're watching the video feed, they're showing another one called Rewind.
Recall.
Recall. Sorry, it's basically Rewind though. In my defense.
It's like, did you ever play Blinks the Time Sweeper? Well, it's that. No, I'm joking. It's basically just like a rewind feature where you can go to. You see, again, I don't know if it's certain objects in the world or
if it's
just
everything.
the world. The world en masse will react to this thing, because I think that's what's super interesting about all these abilities is not the fact of like, I understand the core conceit of how they all work. I'm now more interested because they made me think about how they're going to work within the world.
Yeah.
Like the wider world. So recall, sorry, I got sidetracked. You rewind time, so objects move backwards in time. So in the demo, Eiji Onuma basically showed it as like getting on a boulder that had fallen from one of these new sky islands that you can go to, pressing rewind, and then the boulder goes back up, and that's like a quick way to get there.
Yeah.
I almost certainly bet you can use it in things like combat and dungeons.
You rewind enemies away, for example.
Exactly.
Something. Yeah.
Exactly. So then fuse, like you said, you can fuse objects together. What are what's the ceiling on that? I don't know, because he kept it fairly basic. He was like, here's a stick and a rock. Also, if you kill one of those bats and they drop those eyes that you usually just did nothing with in the first game, you can attach that to arrows, and now when you shoot an arrow, they will seek enemies. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So like, what if I combine an eye with a like he later on he makes like a really big pitchfork. So he uses like a pitchfork and a longer stick, and now he's got this like long ass lance pitchfork. Like, what if I put an eye on that and then throw it? Would that seek enemies?
I think, look, you'd have a much better understanding of like the back end side of this, but I imagine it would be like,
dude, this is a fucking nightmare. No, I can't imagine how they've done this.
But on that, I'm thinking like, it's a thing of, okay, like if Bat's eye combined,
definitely from that perspective,
homing in equals 1, and it is like, your pitchfork's got the homing attribute. Like if you throw it, it's gonna find an enemy.
But like everyone's like, why did this game take so long to make when it's just the same world? Are you seeing what they're doing mechanically? This is insane. The amount of testing and the amount of like even just the ideas they had to come up with, like, what do all of these things do when combined? What if I combine this and this? If I combine this and that, then what does that do, And how are all these things interesting? Like, this is insane. The ambition on, like, mechanics like these is incredible. I'm so excited.
I'm excited
What were the other ones? There was the arm thing where you can combine... So it's like fuses specifically for weapons. Yeah. Then you've got the other thing where you can take like big logs from trees you've chopped down and like combine them into like a raft. They like stick together, and you can like dismantle them at will. You can also reposition them. The system seems really like easy, so it's not like finicky to combine things. But then it's like, then I can attach fans to the end of this raft, and now I've got like a fucking jet boat. I don't know. If I put an eye on it, will it seek enemies? Who knows? Can I throw a boat at an enemy?
Well, I think Breath of the Wild itself was so iconic on that front alone, where it's like right from the get-go they give you everything. So here's the tools, you can go do whatever the hell you want. And like one of my favorite examples is there's one of the shrines where you basically had to finish a circuit and get 2 conductors connected. And the puzzle itself's like, there's a huge metal block over there that you can just carry over. But I'll never forget, it was either on YouTube or somewhere where somebody took all their swords and just chained them together, and it worked.
It was in a dungeon, actually. It was one of the divine beasts.
Oh, it was one of the divine, and it's like...
You just like created a circuit with all his swords and basically bypassed the whole dungeon.
And I'm like, I don't know if...
cool.
I don't know if that's what they intended, but the game is designed in a way that it's open ended enough that if you can think it and put it to the test, like it
Exactly.
should work. So yeah,
and I think that's what they're leaning into here, is like giving you the tools to do more of that stuff. This isn't like a framework to be like, okay, no, we are actually reining things in, and we are trying to super define the sorts of interactions you can make with the world. It's like, no, we're giving you more tools to fuck this world up. Like we want they watch speedrunners and they were like, that looks sick. Let's give them more things to try out. Like
speedrunners are gonna have a field day.
Speedrunners are gonna tear this game apart, and I cannot wait to see what they do with this shit. Like, if they can combine anything in the world, think about how they're going to propel themselves across the world, because they were able to throw themselves across the map just using stasis and a rock.
Yeah,
like this shit is going to be wild. I'm so excited. You see, so it's like they showed off 4 mechanics, and immediately it's just imagination is all over the place as to what this game can do. I do not. I really don't understand the criticism of like, oh, I'm disappointed that it's the same world. This is so drastically different.
Did we watch the same?
I'm just like, did you watch the same thing? Like, yes, it's a very similar map. It's also very different. Like, you can tell the geography is different. There are islands in the skies, and there's completely new ways to interact with the world. Like they've taken out, I think, very smartly, some of the tedium with the climbing, because I think that is a very Breath of the Wild thing, where that was very novel. Like, oh, I have to climb this mountain, I have to manage my stamina. I think doing that all again doesn't become as novel. So they're like, okay, cool. What about if we let you find a cave and you can just yeet yourself through the cave rock and then you're at the top of the mountain? It's like, yeah, cool. That sounds fun.
That ability did make me laugh though, because it's like that was the only really specific one.
Yes, it's like you need a ceiling always.
It's like you can combine things. You can do this. Also, here's an ability. Yeah, you can only go through ceilings, but it's here.
But again, ceilings is vague. Like, what if I create my own ceiling?
Oh yeah, like maybe you can go through it.
Yeah, like say there's a cliff and I'm like, don't really feel like climbing. I'm just going to put like this fucking piece of wood above my head, stasis it, ascend, boom, now I've got a platform that I can jump off of.
Yeah, we never know. We'll see.
Link can make a flying machine. What if he dive bombs off of it and then ascends through the base of it again, and then it like momentum propels them off to fucking Ganon's castle? Who knows?
Oh, you're a speedrunner. I can't believe this.
They didn't touch on the story, the structure of the game. Like, are there going to be dungeons? That's one thing I do hope. Like, I like the Divine Beasts because they were different, but they were very small dungeons compared to the sort of big, nice dungeons that you got in the shrines. Definitely made up for that, and because they were like 100, it like didn't feel like it. But I would like maybe a few, traditional dungeons.
I think that there's games where they lean into more traditional dungeons because they've given you, like you said earlier, the rewind. It's going to be used to solve puzzles in a dungeon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or 3 or 4, like
absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people being like, oh, there's the Sky Islands, but I think the big reveal that they're not talking about is there's a whole city underneath.
Oh, they're going to Elden Ring this?
Yes. I mean, think about the very first trailer. They were underground.
Yeah. Nice. I'm ready. How big is this game?
There's also a really interesting theory that this is like a... So there's the Zelda timeline.
Yeah.
Right?
It's wild.
And this is sort of the idea that Breath of the Wild is kind of like at the end of that timeline, and Skyward Sword is at the top.
Yeah.
There is a theory that the Zelda timeline en masse is trapped in a curse, and that Tears of the Kingdom is how we link back to Skyward Sword, and the timeline repeats. And this is like a curse that like maybe you'll break, and the whole like logo being an Ouroboros, like kind of like it's an interesting theory. I quite like it. Yeah. I don't think Nintendo gives a shit. Like, they do not care.
Yeah, game is looking really good. I cannot wait. It's out in May. We're in April now.
Sure,
That's
and it's
next month.
early May. I thought it was the end of May. It's like 12th of May. We're like
My
5 weeks out
goodness.
from a fucking new Zelda. Should I buy an
crazy.
OLED Switch?
that
Jesus.
OLED Switch is real nice. I'll tell you that.
It's aggressive. It's so aggressively priced locally. It's sad, and it doesn't even come with the game.
Yeah, that blows my mind. Here's a special edition, no game. Like what?
Because it's like the OLED Switch locally is like 8.5.
Mm.
I've seen listings for the Zelda one 9.5. That is.
Oof.
That's
Worth
a
it.
grand off of Xbox Series X.
Worth
I
it.
don't know if I can. That seems crazy to me. But anyway,
Yeah,
moving
let's
on.
fly through the other little pieces of news.
Final Fantasy.
Of Fantasy
Oh, look at
16
that! You
has gone
even
gold.
knew
I knew.
it was busy loading, and you knew.
Oh, wow, this is
what a
the world's
legend.
shortest article. I'll read
Well,
it to you.
it's gold. That's it.
Final Fantasy 16 has gone gold. Square Enix announced that means that the game has finished development and is ready for mass production. Final Fantasy 16 is due out for PlayStation 5 on June 22. If you missed it, watch the latest trailing gameplay footage here. That's the whole article.
Great article.
It's
Loved
gone
it. To the
gone
point.
gold. Nice, man.
Small rant. Going gold does not mean what it used to.
Mm.
Because of the nature of games today, like what is printed on a disc can be completely overwritten by a patch on day one, and we've seen it happen. So I guess it just to not signify that, hey, this game is probably
it's coming, yeah.
probably not going to be delayed, but games have gone gold and then been delayed, which is super strange. So it happens. But I think Square Enix is super confident that this is going to hit its June date. I mean, going gold 2 months before its date is crazy. Yeah. I'm so excited for this game.
This year,
really
it's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, this year already is just a fucking great gaming year, and it doesn't seem to be letting up.
What blows my mind is that like the latter half of the year, we don't actually know what's coming out.
We have very little. I mean, the only thing we really know of is Starfield and the assumption that Spider-Man 2 will make.
But even those two, I'm like, cool. If it's just those two, like we've 2023
bangers,
great year,
bangers.
Yeah.
Forza Motorsport for me, but that's
so Socks coming out this year, hopefully.
Yeah, listen. We are fast approaching the 12-month window on that. Because I know it didn't work for Starfield and it didn't work for Forza, but Silksong was said within the next 12 months.
Yeah.
June is approaching.
We're watching you.
If that thing just fucking drops in May, I might lose my mind.
I'll die. It's going to launch that same day as Tears of the Kingdom. They're that brave.
Jesus. Bold of Team Cherry. Those Australians don't fuck around.
Oh yeah, the last few pieces of news. PlayStation VR 2 is apparently selling really badly.
Check out this reporter, Darren Bonethighs.
Bonethighs Archer. He writes, Sony is expected to sell around 270,000 units by the end of March. Bam. That's real low. I mean,
quite low. Yeah,
it's quite pretty low. I mean, it's still in the 100,000s, but it's not in the hundreds of thousands. I suppose it's Sony expected.
I guess if I'm going to try and make a case for them, there's fewer PS5s out at this point than when comparable to the first PSVR. But at the same time, I just think this thing market-wise is not placed in the same bracket. Like, it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And I get that the hardware is awesome. The hardware is awesome. It's fucking great. It seems to be one of the best VR headsets out on the market today.
Yeah.
It's just way too expensive, and the software is not there. Like, it's just not. I'm sorry. Like, if you are a brand new VR player, cool. You are playing your Beat Sabers for the first time, your pistol whips for the first time. But beyond that, if you owned the first PSVR, you have fuck all reason to get this thing.
Yeah.
Like,
zero. This video playing, is this Timur?
Yeah, that's Tam's.
His shirt
review.
Is Chef's Kiss. Have you seen it?
What shirt is it? No, I haven't seen.
It says Midgar on it. Hang on. Nah. Sorry, audio listeners are getting the worst experience. I'm not going to find it. Look at that.
Oh, there. He is a very big Final Fantasy VII fan. Gave it 10 out of 10 on GameSpot.
Love to see it. Yeah, PSVR 2. I still want to dabble with one day, but yeah, Monet.
Will Sony price cut it? I think they will.
You think they will? Speaking of keeping in Sony news, The Last of Us Part 1's PC port isn't in great shape.
Yeah, so I've touched this I didn't speak about it because I just haven't played enough of it, but I've been playing this on PC, been dabbling with it on Steam Deck.
Yeah.
It's okay on my end, but I know why it's okay. It's because I have a GPU with more than 12 gigs of VRAM. Now,
Oh,
if you are someone who doesn't have that, this game aggressively scales. Even at 1080p, if you're playing at HD on a 3070, for example, a good video card,
that's my
just with
card.
8 gigs of memory, if you're playing at 1080p and you decide, I want to be on ultra settings because, hey, it's 1080p and I've got a 3070,
Mm,
you will just have a bad time.
I know.
Like, it will fill up your VRAM like crazy. You'll get stutters. So that is just one of the pieces of the puzzle
Yeah.
that's like broken there. Naughty Dog have put out a lot of hot fixes to try and address crashes because like the game would, again, with your VRAM, when it filled up, just crash, just done.
Nice.
And it's kind of crappy because it's kind of showing like it shouldn't be like that when you're playing at such a low resolution. Like
Yeah.
you can drop the settings, sure, but like the 3070 is a card that if you're playing at 1080p, you expect to like I'm scaling back resolution so I can up the settings, but it's like no. Irrespective of what resolution you go, you can only be at these settings because of your VRAM for a card that is barely like 4 years old.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Bizarre.
Don't know how this thing even runs on the Steam Deck, but it does. It
It
doesn't look
does.
great. But yeah.
But it's out
So
there.
yeah, it's also quite demanding. I think like I've seen performance numbers for like a 4090 that at 1080p it's only hitting 160 frames on a 4090.
Like what?
That thing is leagues ahead of like a PS5. And this is at
Crazy.
1080p. At 4K, it's barely holding above 60.
That's
The fuck's going on? Yeah. Nah, crazy.
And the last piece of news this week,
Hell yes.
Sonic's dead.
Sonic is
in
dead.
Sega's new game, The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. So this broke. So this is Saturday for us recording. It broke last night on Friday evening.
Just before.
Sega like, yo, there's a new Sonic game. And on Twitter, we saw it on Twitter. You shared the link, like, hey, there's a new Sonic game, The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. And people like, oh, good one, Sega. April Fools, you got us, you know. And Sega being like, no, here's a Steam link. This is an actual.
This is a game you can play right now on Steam for free.
It's free to play. It exists. Here you go. So I don't know. I had a look at the Steam page earlier. There are already like nearly 4,000 user reviews, and I'm like,
I've bought it. I've downloaded that thing.
Yeah,
I'm in.
Nah, so you can give us a review next week. Like, what is this?
It's according to Steam, it's oh god, where is the description's funny. Sonic the Hedgehog was murdered? Get to the bottom of the mystery in this brand new adventure. That's it. It's real fun. It's apparently like a visual novel adventure game. It looks cool, man. I'm in to see who killed Sonic. I bet it was Shadow.
Oh my god, it's like a proper
actually,
little
I bet
novel.
it was Tails. Tails was like, fuck this guy. I'm gonna kill this guy and make it look like Shadow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love this. I love when brands are self-aware and just take the piss. Like, because I mean, I haven't watched the trailer, but did you watch the trailer?
Yeah.
Opens with, we heard your feedback. I'm like, who was asking for a Sonic mystery game? But yeah, that's out now on Steam, free to play. Download it. Hit us up in the comments. Tell us who killed Sonic. Don't tell us. Don't spoil it. Okay.
This is the Sonic. What's the Sonic game that came out last year? Frontiers.
Last Frontiers.
Yeah, this is the Sonic Frontiers sequel you've been waiting for.
Oh my god, I can't. But on that bombshell, that's news for this week.